So the economic perspective on pricing suggests that people will buy when perceived value exceeds actual price. But the consumers may not always be rational. They can be irrational, which implies that customers' willingness to pay are often dependent on the context in which decisions are made. So in this case, the context is from where the purchase is made. So willingness to pay is dependent on the expectations that a customer has and the perception of fairness. So these two things, especially fairness, has a significant impact on customers' willingness to pay. So let's look at scenario 2A and 2B. So scenario 2A reads as, you're off to buy a Sony Discman at what you believe to be the cheapest store in the area. Upon arriving, you find that the Discman you want costs $29, a price consistent with your prior expectations. As you're about to make the purchase, a reliable friend tells you that the very same Discman is selling for $10 less at a store approximately 10 minutes away. Do you go to the store to buy the Discman or do you buy it here? So I guess as a consumer, the trade-off is, are you willing to travel 10 minutes to save $10? Is that worth it? So the trade-off that you're making here is, do I spend 10 minutes to save $10 and buy it at $19? Now, look at 2B. Scenario 2B here is everything is the same, except that upon arriving, you find that the laptop, instead of a Discman that you want to buy, costs $2,945. So it's $2,945. So the price has gone up significantly compared to the prior Discman. As you are about to make the purchase now, a reliable friend tells you that the very same laptop is selling for $10 less at a store approximately 10 minutes away. So do you go to the store to buy the laptop or do you buy it here? Again, it's the same $10 and it's the same 10 miles. So again, the decision is you're trying to decide whether it's worth traveling 10 minutes, going 10 minutes to save $10. Most people will say it's not worth going or spending 10 minutes to travel to a different store to save $10 when the product costs $2,945, whereas they are when the product only costs $29. So the same amount that you're saving can be felt differently depending on how much the product costs. So the point here is there's a relative impact, right? So it's the relative price, not only the absolute price, that comes into play. So willingness to pay, WTP, willingness to pay, is also impacted by relative incentives. So customers will consider relative incentives when they enter a payment transaction. So relative incentive can be, calculated as perceived value minus the actual price divided by the actual price. So as you can see, if you do the simple math, the relative incentive in the Discman, where the price was $29, is significantly higher than the relative incentive for the laptop when the price was $2,945, although the savings was identical at $10. So again, this goes to show you that relative incentive comes into play in customers' willingness to pay. Now let's again let's contrast scenarios 3A and 3B, where scenario 3A reads as, your favorite sports team has made the playoff series in a best-of-7 series with games 1, 2, 5, and 7 played on your team's home field. You want to attend games 5 and 7 if they make it that far. General admission tickets have been priced at $20 during the regular season. The team decided to raise general admission prices to $40 for these 4 playoff games. Is this price increase fair or unfair? Okay, so keep this in mind. Now compare this with scenario 3B, which reads basically the same as the previous scenario. The only difference is that if we go towards the middle of the scenario where it says general admission tickets were also priced at $20 for games 1 and 2 of the playoffs. So here, $20 for regular games, $20 for games 1 and 2 of the playoffs. After game 2, the team decided to raise prices to $40 for games 5 and 7. So is this price increase fair or unfair? So most people, when they were confronted with scenarios 3 and B, said that scenario 3A is fair. Right? It's okay to raise your price to $40 for the playoffs games, double the price compared to the regular season games. Whereas in scenario 3B, most people said that if you raise your games 5 and 7 to $40, but you charged $20 for games 1 and 2, despite that games 1 and 2 were also playoff games, most people said that this was unfair. Why is that? Well, it's because there's a salient reference price. A reference price is a price to which customers compare the price to determine whether, the price that's being charged is fair or unfair. So it's a kind of like a benchmark price to which prices are compared against. So in scenario 3B, the salient reference price was games 1 and 2 of the playoffs. Because game 5 and 7 are playoffs, and they will compare the price of games 5 and 7 to the games 1 and 2 because they're both playoff games. So charging double for games 5 and 7 compared to games 1 and 2 when all 4 games were playoffs does not make a lot of sense and is perceived as unfair to a lot of customers because games 1 and 2 were perceived as salient reference prices. Whereas in scenario 3B, there was no, the regular games did not function as a salient, reference price compared to the playoff games. Why? Because categorically, a regular season game is different. The excitement is different. The atmosphere is different. And most people understand that's very different from the playoff games. So the regular season tickets, the regular games, which were charged at $20, did not function as a salient reference price compared to the $40 that was charged during the playoff games, and therefore, although it was twice as expensive, it did not be perceived as unfair, whereas it did in scenario 3B, where games 1 and 2 were considered as salient reference prices.